The massive Guardian ship drifted through space, its once gleaming silver hull now scared and darkened. Inside, Ambassador White Star watched through the command room's viewport as the last of their defense fleet vanished in silent explosions. His pale fingers trembled as they gripped the console. After 10,000 years of protecting the galaxy, the Guardians were falling. High Council broadcasting to all sectors. He spoke into the emergency channel, his voice steady despite his fear. The Void Swarm has breached our final defense line. I repeat, the Void Swarm has breached our lines. The ship's artificial intelligence displayed the devastating truth on the screens around him. Across the galaxy, Guardian outposts were going dark one by one. The Void Swarm, a massive cloud of black ships that moved like hungry insects, was consuming everything in its path. Their hive mind consciousness was too strong, their numbers too vast. White Star remembered the Council's foolish pride when they first detected the swarm. "We are the Guardians," they had said. "We have protected this galaxy since the first stars died. No force can stand against our technology." But they had been wrong. The swarm didn't fight like any enemy they had faced before. It didn't want territory or resources. It wanted to consume, to absorb, to make everything part of itself. Worse, it could somehow take control of minds, turning allies against each other. Even the mighty Guardians, with their evolved brains and advanced technology, couldn't resist its influence. Through another viewport, White Star watched a Guardian battle cruiser turn its weapons on its own allies. The swarm had taken its crew. He pressed a button, and a mercy blast from his ship destroyed the corrupted cruiser. Better a quick death than becoming part of that hive mind horror. "Status report," he commanded. The ship's AI responded in its calm voice. "Guardian forces have fallen in sectors 1 through 897. Remaining Guardian ships, 42. Estimated time until total Guardian extinction, 6 hours." White Star closed his eyes. Billions of lives lost. Thousands of civilizations about to be consumed. The Guardians had failed in their duty to protect the galaxy. But then he remembered something. A small blue planet in a quiet arm of the galaxy. A young species the Council had judged too primitive to contact. His research team had studied them in secret, fascinated by their strange mix of violence and kindness, logic and emotion. Humans, they called themselves. Unlike the other species in the galaxy, humans hadn't evolved to suppress their emotions. They could feel deep rage, yet still think clearly. They could be furious, yet remain in control. Most importantly, early tests suggested their brains might be naturally resistant to the swarm's mind control. The Council had ignored his reports about humanity's potential. Too dangerous, they said. Too unpredictable. Best to let them remain isolated until they evolve beyond their emotional nature. Now, as White Star watched another Guardian world fall to the swarm, he realized that humanity's primitive nature might be exactly what the galaxy needed. He typed quickly, entering new coordinates into the ship's navigation system. Earth. It was a desperate gamble, but it was the only hope left. The swarm was methodical, consuming worlds in a specific pattern. Earth's sector would be among the last to fall. If he could reach them, warn them, give them the Guardian's technology. A violent explosion rocked the ship. Warning lights flashed red. Alert. Void Swarm vessels approaching. Hull breach in sectors 2, 5, and 7. Time to critical failure, 10 minutes. White Star gripped his console as the ship limped toward its new course. "Emergency Protocol 973, he commanded. "Upload all Guardian technical data and cultural archives to secure storage. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed." As his ship accelerated into light speed, White Star looked one last time at the graveyard of Guardian vessels behind him. Their time was over. Now, the galaxy's last hope rested with a species that still remembered how to feel rage. Captain James Miller stared at the radar screen aboard the research vessel, Horizon, floating near Jupiter's orbit. Something wasn't right. The blip on his screen was too big to be space junk, too fast to be an asteroid, and definitely not one of Earth's ships. "Tom, are you seeing this?" he called to his friend and chief engineer. "Yeah, Cap, never seen anything move like that before," Tom replied, adjusting his glasses as he studied the readings. "It's bleeding some kind of energy our sensors can't even identify." The crew of 20 gathered on the bridge, watching as the strange object grew closer. The horizon was supposed to be studying Jupiter's moons, not making history. But Miller knew they were about to do exactly that. "Whatever it is, it's damaged," said Lisa, their medical officer. "Look at its flight path. It's wobbling like a wounded bird." Miller made his decision. "Send out a greeting on all frequencies. If someone's hurt up there, we help. That's what we do." The strange ship was massive, easily 10 times the size of the horizon. Its silver hull was covered in strange markings that seemed to glow faintly, but parts of it were blackened and torn open, revealing complex machinery unlike anything humans had ever built. "We're getting a response," Tom announced, his voice shaking with excitement. It's not in any language I've ever heard." The bridge speakers crackled to life, filling with strange musical sounds that slowly changed, as if the source was learning with each note. Finally, the sounds became words. "This is Ambassador White Star of the Guardian Council," a weak voice said. "Please, help." Miller's training kicked in. Within an hour, they had secured a docking connection with the alien ship. He led the rescue team himself, wearing their best spacesuits. The air inside the Guardian vessel was breathable, according to their instruments, but they weren't taking chances. They found White Star in the command center. He was tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer. His eyes were large and completely silver. He was clearly dying. "You are humans," White Star said, looking at them with what seemed like hope. "Good. There is little time." Over the next hour, White Star told them everything. About the Guardians, about the Void Swarm, about why humanity might be the galaxy's last hope. Miller listened, his mind racing with the implications. "Our scientists thought your species too primitive," White Star explained, each word seeming to cost him effort. "They were wrong. Your emotions, your anger, they are your strength. The swarm cannot control minds that burn with controlled fury." "Why tell us?" Miller asked. "Why not some other species?" "Others evolved past emotion, became like living computers, easy for swarm to control. But humans," White Star's silver eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Humans feel deeply yet think clearly, can be angry without losing reason. Perfect warriors against the swarm." White Star pressed a crystal into Miller's hand. "All our knowledge, all our technology. Use it. Improve it. Make it your own." He coughed, his shimmer fading. "You have 6 months before swarm reaches Earth, maybe less." "We'll need help," Miller said. "The whole world needs to know about this. Others will resist, will doubt. Show them this." White Star's hand gestured weakly at a wall, which became transparent, showing a recorded image of entire worlds being consumed by a dark cloud of ships. "Save them," White Star whispered. "Save them all." Those were his last words. The Guardian's body glowed brightly for a moment, then faded away like stardust. Miller looked at the crystal in his hand, then at his crew. "Tom, contact Earth. All channels, all languages, all nations." He took a deep breath. "Tell them humanity just inherited a war for the galaxy." 3 weeks after White Star's death, the world had changed completely. The United Nations building in New York was packed with leaders from every country. They watched in silence as Captain Miller played the Guardian's recordings again. Entire worlds vanishing into the darkness of the Void Swarm. "We have 5 months left," Miller said, standing at the podium. "Maybe less. The good news is we have the Guardian's technology." He held up White Star's crystal. "The bad news, it'll take years to understand it all. We have months." The room erupted in angry shouts and arguments. Miller waited. He'd seen this before, fear turning to anger. But human anger could be useful. White Star had taught him that. Listen. His voice cut through the chaos. This is exactly why the Guardians were wrong about us. They thought our emotions made us weak. But look around this room. We're angry. We're scared. And we're still thinking, still planning. That's our strength. The shouting died down. Miller nodded to Tom, who was now his chief of technology. Tom pressed a button, and a hologram appeared above the podium. It showed the first human-modified Guardian weapon they'd built. 3 days ago, we made a discovery, Miller continued. Guardian tech responds to emotions. The Guardians didn't know this because they'd evolved past feeling strongly. But when our test pilot got angry, really angry, but controlled, the weapon's power doubled. The room was silent now. Miller could see the implications hitting them. We can't just copy the Guardians' technology. We need to make it our own. We need to build something new, something human. The President of the United States stood up. What are you suggesting, Captain? A unified Earth Defense Force. The Terra Defense Initiative. No more countries fighting each other. We have 5 months to build an army that can save not just Earth, but the galaxy. To everyone's surprise, the Chinese president stood next. China supports this initiative. We have no time for old rivalries. One by one, world leaders stood. Old enemies put aside their differences in the face of extinction. Within hours, the Terra Defense Initiative was born. The next 2 months were unlike anything in human history. Factories worldwide switched to building spaceships and weapons. Scientists worked around the clock, combining Guardian technology with human innovation. Most importantly, they learned to harness their emotions. In a testing facility under the Rocky Mountains, Lisa, now head of medical research, made another breakthrough. The Guardians were right about one thing, she told Miller, showing him brain scans. We're the only species they ever found who can feel deep emotion without losing rational thought. Our brains are different. Miller watched through blast-proof glass as a test pilot channeled his controlled anger into a Guardian weapon. The energy beam was twice as powerful as anything the Guardians had ever produced. How soon can we mass-produce these? He asked Tom. That's the thing, Cap, Tom replied, excited. We're not just copying their tech anymore. We're making it better. The Guardians built perfect machines, but we're building machines that feel. In orbit, the first human battle fleet was taking shape. The ships were odd hybrids. Guardian technology merged with human design. They weren't as elegant as Guardian ships, but they were stronger, more adaptive, more alive. Miller stood at the window of the space station, watching Earth below. Humanity had inherited an impossible task. The Guardians, with all their power and knowledge, had failed to stop the Void Swarm. But humans had something the Guardians never understood. The power of controlled rage, of emotion turned to purpose. 5 months to save the galaxy, he muttered to himself. Good thing we work well under pressure. Behind him, the stars seemed to dim slightly, as if a shadow was slowly creeping across space. The Void Swarm was coming. But for the first time in history, humanity was united, ready to fight not just for Earth, but for every living thing in the galaxy. The real question was, would it be enough? Kate Stone had always been told her temper would get her in trouble. Now, sitting in the cockpit of a modified Guardian fighter, her anger might save humanity. Remember, Tom's voice crackled through her headset. Controlled fury, like holding a flame without getting burned. Kate took a deep breath. The neural interface helmet felt cold against her skin. Around her, the fighter's cockpit glowed with soft blue light. Guardian technology merged with human design. Beautiful, powerful, and hungry for emotion. Beginning test flight 17, she said, Fury engine engaging. The ship hummed to life as Kate thought about everything that made her angry. The Void Swarm destroying worlds. The threat to Earth. all those lives lost. But she didn't let the anger control her. She shaped it, focused it, just as she'd been trained. The fighters' engines roared. Energy readings doubled, then tripled. In the observation room, Miller watched the numbers with growing hope. "She's doing it," Tom whispered. "Look at these readings. The ship isn't just responding to her emotions, it's amplifying them." Through the test chamber window, they watched Kate's fighter move. It wasn't the smooth, perfect flight of Guardian ships. This was something new, powerful, aggressive, yet precisely controlled. Human. "Talk to us," Kate, Miller called. "How does it feel?" "It's like..." Kate searched for words as she put the fighter through complex maneuvers. "Like the ship is angry with me. Like we're sharing the feeling, making it stronger, but neither of us is losing control." This was what White Star had meant. Humans didn't have to suppress their emotions like the Guardians. They could feel deeply while staying focused. Against an enemy that turned logic against itself, emotional strength might be the only defense. Suddenly, alarms blared. Kate's fighter was glowing bright red. "Power spike," Tom shouted. "The Fury engine is overloading." "Kate, shut it down," Miller ordered. "No." Kate's voice was steady despite the danger. "I can control this. Trust me." They watched in amazement as the fighter's glow shifted from red to deep purple. The energy readings stabilized at levels they'd never seen before. "How did you do that?" Tom asked later, studying the readings. "I stopped fighting the anger," Kate explained. "The Guardians built their technology to suppress emotion. We need to modify it to amplify emotion instead. The ship doesn't want a pilot who's holding back." Miller nodded slowly. This was the key. "Tom, how quickly can you rebuild the other fighters like Kate's?" "A week, maybe less. But finding pilots like her..." Tom glanced at Kate. "That's going to be harder." They got their chance to test the new design sooner than expected. The Deep Space Radar Station on Mars picked up something disturbing. The Void Swarm wasn't waiting. Scout ships were already entering the solar system. "They're testing our defenses," Miller told the Emergency Council meeting. "Looking for weaknesses." "Are we ready?" the Secretary General asked. Miller looked at Kate, who now led the first squadron of Fury fighters. "We'll have to be." That night, Kate stood on the observation deck of the space station, watching Earth shine below. 4 test pilots had already died learning to control the Fury engines. But those who survived were becoming something new, warriors who could turn emotion into power. "There's a scout ship approaching Mars orbit," Miller said, joining her at the window. "Your squadron is cleared to intercept." Kate nodded, feeling the familiar anger rise. But now it was a tool, a weapon as natural as breathing. Time to show them what angry humans can do. As she walked to her fighter, Kate smiled. The Void Swarm thought it was hunting weak prey. It was about to learn that humanity's emotions weren't a weakness. They were the galaxy's last hope. The Void Swarm struck Mars' colony without warning. 12 black ships, moving like hungry insects, descended on the research base. But this time, humanity was ready. "All pilots to stations." Kate's voice rang through the defense station. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." 6 Fury fighters launched from the hidden base on Mars' moon Phobos. Kate led them, her mind already connecting with her ship through the neural interface. The familiar anger flowed through her, controlled and focused. "Remember your training," she said to her squadron. "Don't fight the emotion. Use it. The swarm expects logical enemies. Show them what human rage can do." The black ships noticed them too late. Kate's squadron hit them from above, their weapons powered by controlled fury. The first swarm ship exploded in a shower of dark metal. But the Void Swarm adapted quickly. The remaining ships spread out, releasing clouds of smaller fighters. These weren't like normal ships. They moved like they were alive, trying to get close enough to infect human minds. "They're testing our defenses." Miller's voice came through the comm system from Earth Command. Don't let them touch your ships. Kate rolled her fighter through a swarm of enemies. Her anger peaked as she watched one of her pilots get surrounded. The young man's fear came through the squadron's linked communications. "Control it," Kate shouted. "Remember who you are." The pilot's fear turned to focused rage. His ship glowed purple, just like in training. He burst free from the enemy circle, his weapons leaving trails of destruction. But they were still outnumbered. 2 human pilots fell to the swarm's overwhelming attacks. Kate watched their ships explode, feeling her anger grow stronger. This was different from training. This was real. "Kate," Miller's voice was urgent. "We're seeing something strange. The swarm ships, they're pulling back from your squadron." He was right. The black ships were keeping their distance, moving differently now, almost like they were afraid. They can feel it, Kate realized. Our emotions. They'd never faced anything like this before. She switched to squadron frequency. "All pilots. Full emotional output. Let them feel our anger." The remaining 4 Fury fighters charged their weapons. Each pilot channeled their rage at seeing fellow humans die. Their ships glowed brighter than ever before. The Void Swarm tried to retreat. For the first time in its existence, it faced an enemy it couldn't understand or control. Human emotions disrupted its hive-mind connection. "Don't let them escape," Kate ordered. "If any get away, they'll warn the main fleet." The battle above Mars lasted only 20 minutes. When it ended, all 12 swarm ships were destroyed. But humanity had lost 2 pilots, and the Mars colony had suffered heavy damage. In the aftermath, Kate stood in the colony's broken dome, watching emergency teams repair the breach. Miller joined her, his face grim. "The good news is we proved humans can fight them," he said. "The bad news, this was just a scouting force. The main swarm is still coming." Kate nodded, looking at the Martian sky where her fellow pilots had died. "But now we know something important. The swarm feels fear. It can be hurt. And most importantly, it's never faced an enemy it couldn't control before. That's why it sent scouts. It's being careful." "You think we scared it?" Miller asked. "No," Kate smiled grimly. "But we will. The Guardians fought with perfect logic and lost. We'll fight with controlled rage, and that's something the swarm doesn't understand." As if to prove her point, a salvaged piece of swarm technology on a nearby table suddenly crumbled to dust. The emotion in the room had been too much for it to handle. Miller watched the dust scatter in the thin Martian air. "How long until the main fleet arrives?" Based on the scout ship's trajectory, Kate checked her datapad. 2 weeks, maybe less. "Then we better get ready," Miller said. "Because next time, they won't underestimate us." Above them, the stars seemed dimmer than before. Somewhere out there, the main swarm fleet was coming. But for the first time since the Guardians fell, the galaxy had hope. Humanity had proven they could fight back. The real war was about to begin. The Earth fleet emerged from light speed at the edge of the Centauri system. 100 ships, powered by human emotion and determination, ready to take the fight to the Void Swarm. "Main swarm fleet detected." Tom's voice came through the command ship speakers. They're consuming the 3rd planet." Miller stood on the bridge of the flagship Terra's Fury, watching the horrifying sight. The Void Swarm covered the distant planet like a black cloud, breaking it apart piece by piece. "All ships, battle positions," he ordered. "Kate, lead the Fury squadron. Hit them before they notice us." Kate's voice was steady as she replied. "Copy that. Fury squadron, form up. Remember, controlled anger. Make it count." The human fleet had one advantage: surprise. The swarm didn't expect its prey to attack. They'd never faced an enemy that would charge straight into their darkness. "For Earth," Kate shouted as her fighters struck first. 50 Fury fighters, their hulls glowing purple with emotional energy, tore into the swarm's outer defenses. The space around them erupted in chaos. The swarm was massive, thousands of ships strong. But the human vessels carried something new: weapons powered by rage, ships guided by determination, and pilots who could turn fear into strength. "They're trying to link with our minds," one pilot shouted, just like the Guardians warned. "Let them try," Kate responded. "Show them what a human mind feels like." When the swarm attempted to control the human pilots, they found minds burning with controlled fury. The hive-mind connection backfired. Swarm ships began to break formation, confused by emotions they couldn't understand. Miller watched the battle from his command chair. "All capital ships, advance. Fire the rage cannons." The large human warships opened fire. Each cannon was powered by the combined emotional energy of 100 crew members. The weapons were crude compared to Guardian technology, but they hit with incredible force. "Sir," Tom called out, "we're picking up something." Other ships, not swarm vessels. From hiding places around the system, other alien ships appeared. Survivors from races the swarm had nearly destroyed, watching in amazement as humanity fought back. "This is Captain James Miller of Earth." He broadcast on all frequencies. "If you can fight, join us. If you can't, stay hidden. Humanity will hold the line." Some alien ships joined the battle. Others fled to safety. But all of them saw something impossible: primitive humans fighting the unstoppable swarm and winning. The battle raged for hours. Human ships fell, but they took many swarm vessels with them. Kate's squadron carved paths through the black cloud, their emotional energy disrupting the swarm's control wherever they went. "The swarm is retreating," Tom announced finally. They're running away." The cheer that went up through the fleet was deafening. But Miller and Kate knew better. This was just the beginning. "Why did they run?" a young pilot asked. "We were winning, but they still had more ships." "Because we scared them," Kate explained, flying past the remains of swarm vessels. The Guardians were predictable, logical. The swarm knew how to fight them. But humans, we're something new, something that can hurt them. Back on the flagship, Miller received messages from the alien survivors. They shared intelligence about swarm movements, offered supplies, and most importantly, told them about the swarm's central core, the heart of its consciousness. "The Guardians never got this far," he told his officers. "They never made the swarm retreat, but we did. Now we know it can feel fear, and if it can feel fear, it can die," Kate finished, landing her fighter in the ship's bay. "So what's our next move, Captain?" Miller looked at the map showing the swarm's retreat path. "We follow them, push them back, and then we find that core and end this once and for all." The human fleet regrouped, preparing for pursuit. They had lost ships and good people, but they had proven something incredible. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to save the galaxy. And for the first time, it looked like they might actually win. The massive gateway hub hung in space like a giant wheel, its ancient Guardian technology still working after thousands of years. This was where all the jump gates connected, the crossroads of the galaxy. And now it was humanity's final battleground. "Swarm fleet approaching," Tom reported from his station. "Their entire force. Millions of ships." Miller nodded grimly. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. The alien survivors had told them the truth: destroy the hub, and the swarm would lose its fastest way to travel between systems. They would be trapped, forced to fight in smaller groups. "All ships in position?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Kate's voice came through. "Fury Squadron is ready. The aliens are in place too." The human fleet was smaller now after months of fighting, but they had allies, survivors from a dozen alien races who had watched humanity fight back and found their own courage. "Remember," Miller broadcast to all ships, "the swarm thinks we're here to protect the hub. They don't know our real plan. Make them believe it." The battle began with a roar of engines and weapons. The Void Swarm attacked in full force, expecting to crush the defenders quickly. Instead, they met a wall of emotional energy as hundreds of Fury fighters struck first. Kate led her squadron straight into the heart of the swarm. Push them back. Make them focus on us. The alien ships attacked from the sides, using tactics they had learned from watching humans fight. The swarm's perfect formation began to break apart as it faced enemies it couldn't predict or control. But the swarm was still incredibly powerful. Human and alien ships exploded under its attack. The black cloud of enemy vessels seemed endless. Hull breach on Deck 7. Tom shouted as the flagship shook. We're taking heavy damage. Miller watched the battle map carefully. The swarm was fully committed now, all its ships engaged in the fight. It was time. Kate, he called, begin Operation Firebreak. Copy that, she replied. All ships, fall back to safe distance. Captain, it's been an honor. Miller smiled sadly. The honor was mine. Now go. As the Allied fleet retreated, Miller's flagship turned toward the hub's main power core. The ship's engines glowed bright purple as every crew member focused their emotions into the Fury drive. Sir, Tom said quietly, you don't have to. Yes, I do, Miller replied. Someone has to pilot the ship manually through their defenses. The swarm will detect autopilot. He looked at his old friend. Get to the escape pod. That's an order. The swarm realized too late what was happening. They turned to stop the flagship, but Kate's squadron hit them from behind, creating a path. For the Guardians, alien voices called over the comm. For Earth. Miller's ship shot through the chaos like a bullet, aimed straight at the hub's core. The swarm swarmed around him, trying to stop what was coming. Kate, he said calmly, the galaxy needs heroes. Think you can handle that? We'll make you proud, Captain, she replied, her voice thick with emotion. Miller closed his eyes, thinking of Earth, of humanity's rise from a primitive species to the galaxy's defenders. He felt no fear, only controlled fury at what the swarm had done to so many worlds. See you among the stars, he said, and rammed his ship into the hub's core. The explosion was magnificent. The hub shattered, its destruction taking thousands of swarm ships with it. The jump gate network collapsed, trapping the surviving swarm forces in scattered groups across space. In the months that followed, Kate led the combined human and alien fleets in hunting down the isolated swarm vessels. Without their ability to mass their forces, the swarm grew weaker. Finally, they found its core consciousness and destroyed it, ending the threat forever. 1 year after Miller's sacrifice, Kate stood in the new Galactic Council chamber on Earth. Representatives from every surviving species watched as she took the oath as the first Guardian commander. We will rebuild, she told them, not as separate races, but together. The Guardians taught us technology. We taught our allies about emotion. And together, we'll make sure nothing like the swarm ever threatens our galaxy again. Above the chamber, the stars shone brightly. Humanity had risen from an isolated species to the galaxy's protectors. They had proven that emotions, properly controlled, weren't weakness but strength. The age of the old Guardians was over. The age of humanity had begun.